Hello from the lake and welcome back to Fish Anything. Today we've got another ultralight rod video. The difference today is that I'm actually comparing two models. I talked about this recently, the Daiwa Kage and the Dobyns Sierra, both fantastic ultralights. They're both very similar. They've got some slight differences. They come in at about the same price point, so I think there's probably a lot of people out there that are comparing these two rods and trying to decide between the two. So the goal today is basically to fish with both and then help explain the differences so that way you can make a more informed decision if you're trying to decide which one's better for you. And then really the only other goal I have is just to catch a bunch of fish. So without further ado, let's start fishing. Let's talk about these rods. Let's go. Unfortunately, we've got some wind today, so I'm trying to hide behind this big tree right here. Before I get started fishing, just wanted to kind of take a quick step through the specs. These rods are very, very similar as mentioned. The Kage is a 6'1", rated for 1/32 through 1/8 ounce lures, and then line 1 to 4 pound test. And then the Sierra is a 6'2", 2 to 6 pound test, 1/32 through 3/16 ounce lures. And these are both ultralight fast action. Regardless of how they rate these rods, I would say they're pretty much identical as far as what their blanks can handle. The other thing I do need to note is that the Dobyns I have is a 2-piece model, but before this I actually had the 1-piece model, which I broke. It was totally my fault. But either way, I can tell you that the 2-piece and the 1-piece perform almost identically for the Dobyns, so I don't think that's going to change anything. The Kage is a 1-piece. As you can see with the aesthetics, you know, these rod butts are similar but slightly different. I would say the Dobyns is a little bit thicker, and I think personally, I think it's just a little bit more comfortable to hold, but I do like that the Kage has the cork that goes way up above this, so that way when you're holding it, you've got a good grip on the cork above, whereas the Dobyns, it's just plastic, so when you're holding it, you kind of touch the blank a little bit. Some people might like that because some people like to feel the blank on their rod. I think you could argue one way or the other with regards to the aesthetics and the reel seats and the rod butts. I'd say both reel seats are fantastic. I've never had any issues with my reel slipping or anything like that. I really, really do like the Kage's reel seat. I wish that instead of the cork going so far up, I wish it would go a little bit further down below. As you can see on the Dobyns, the cork goes quite a bit below the reel, and I like that because I've got pretty big hands, and then my palm can kind of rest up against that, whereas with the Kage, my palm is resting against it, but it's also kind of below it. So it's just a little bit less comfortable below the reel. So personally, I kind of think that both of these rods are wonderful, but I kind of wish there was a blend between the two because I like that the cork goes lower on the Dobyns and I like the cork that goes higher on the Kage. If you could just kind of make a blend between the two of these, I think it would be perfect. Regarding their action, as I've mentioned in several videos, these are both solid tipped models, so they're both extremely fast. So they both have a really, really thin tip, and it's like a carbon fiber tip, I want to say, and it makes them extremely, extremely fast. Now, I do want to say, I believe that the Kage actually might be slightly more fast than the Dobyns. It's very, very marginal, but I feel like the Kage just has a slightly faster rod tip. Very, very, very marginal. The wind is starting to push me down, so I guess that's probably a sign I should start fishing. Before I do, I would say that both of these reels are similar in weight. This is the Procyon LT1000. This is the 13 Fishing Kalen C1000. This reel is way better, just to be clear. 2 pound test on both of these, and then we're throwing 1/32 ounce mule jigs with donkey tail juniors on both, so very, very similar. As far as balance goes, they both balance extremely well with a size 1000 reel. I don't think that either one necessarily has an advantage. I think they both balance neutrally with a size 1000 reel, and I like them both for that reason. That's probably enough rambling for right now. I'm gonna go ahead and start throwing the Dobyns around. This is, like I said, a 1/32 ounce jig and 2 pound test, and we're just fishing for whatever bites. Now, with this 2 pound test, as I've mentioned 1,000 times, low diameter line is the big difference maker with castability. I can tell you that because I've rigged both of these rods up with 2 pound tests, they cast light lures a country mile. I honestly just kind of picked a random spot that wasn't super windy, so this might be a terrible spot to fish, but we're just gonna try it anyways. I'm too lazy to move again. I pedaled a long way to get here. I was just looking for a nice area with some wind block. There we go. Oh my gosh, I literally just launched a bass over my shoulders. That was a really, really microscopic bass. I felt that bite because this rod is extremely sensitive. Again, these solid tip model rods, high quality blank, they're very, very sensitive, so you can detect light bites and you can detect small bites like a little 4-inch bass. All right, let's cast the Kage. Again, same exact casting distance, and it all comes down to the line, I think. while they're both extremely fast, the fact that their rod tip does load up just a little bit does assist with the casting. Okay, one little call out that I did not notice before, the Kage actually has 10 guides, the Sierra has 9 guides. Some people find that kind of stuff important. I don't notice a major difference between the two, but now you know. The hook keeper on the Dobyns is below the cork right here, and then the hook keeper on the Kage is above the cork right here. Both of the hook keepers are fine. I like them both. The Dobyns would do a little bit better if you want to put a drop shot weight on there, but really I don't think there's anything wrong about either of them. What's nice is that they don't hook the line. Sometimes rods that put it above the reel, it's got a little loop and then it hooks the line. The Kage did a good job of making it closed, so you're never having your line wrap around it. There's a fish. What is this? Is this a crappie? What is this? Oh, big bluegill on the Dobyns. That was kind of a light little bite. Oh man, that fish is cold. Now I'm starting to understand why it's so slow. Fish feels like a dang ice cube. Not a very big bluegill. You didn't really get a taste of that rod very much, but at least we're on the board. Been pretty slow so far, but I've also been experimenting with new water and I've been fishing offshore a lot. I trust that if I fish shallow, I can find more bluegill. I'm gonna put something more natural on just this rod, and if it pays off, then I'll switch my other rod as well. Okay, so I just rigged up a green pumpkin donkeytail junior on a black jig as opposed to the chartreuse jig with the Karma color. I figure this is a little bit more natural, a little more toned down, and hopefully, there it is. Immediately, this has paid off. There's that Dobyns bending a little bit on this little bluegill. Not a little bluegill, nice bluegill. There we go. There we go. Like I said, I think that the natural color really appeals to bluegill this time of year. The colder the water, the more natural you gotta go. That's been my finding here over the last couple of years. There's a bite. Oh, short striking little gills. Dadgummit. Oh, here he comes. Oh my gosh. Is that a crappie? Oh my gosh. That was a nice gill. He followed it all the way up to my kayak and then he saw me and scooted off. Oh my gosh. That was such a big gill, I thought it was a crappie. All right, I went ahead and added something a little more natural to the Daiwa Kage. This is a 1/64 ounce black mule jig with a ranch hand horsefly. The reason I went with a little bit lighter jig is because I think that slower rate of fall is gonna attract the bluegill's attention a little bit better. I finally think we're set up for success. Oh my gosh, first cast with a ranch hand. Immediately, my drag needs tightened. Well, there's the, oh, he come off, dadgummit. It looks like my plastic got bunched up in front of the hook. That happens every now and again. And sometimes it just kind of gets in the way of getting a good hook set. There we go. I really think that a more natural color is key today. There's a fish. There you go. Oh, that's a nice one. That might have been the fish I just saw a few minutes ago. It's a big gill. And you can see that that rod tip is the only place that this rod blank is bending. And that's a relatively respectable bluegill. It's not a giant by any means, probably about 7 3/4 inches. And yeah, he put a very marginal flex down the rod blank. And this Kage, that's kind of what I've found. You know, it does bend a good bit when you hook into something a little more respectable, but for the most part, it's a very fast rod. And you know, even a decent panfish is really not gonna bend it a ton. I do still consider it an ultralight. I just think that it doesn't bend down the blank very much. And I really, really like that for certain types of jig fishing. I just got another little short strike there. Didn't seem like he had the hook, he just kind of had the tails. So definitely think there's something to this 1/64 ounce jig. I think that slower rate of fall really is key to drawing the bites in this little bit colder water. Probably should rig up a 1/64 on both rods, but again, I am too lazy for that right now. There he is. Yeah, this is gonna be a difference maker for sure. Big difference maker. That's a smaller fish, but again, it's definitely a combination of the line moving as well as the rod tip detecting the bites. You know, this is an extremely sensitive rod. I would say they're equal as far as sensitivity goes. I don't necessarily think that I can tell a difference between the two. I think they're both incredibly sensitive rods, and I'm a big fan. And again, such a key component of it all is the line movement too. Now we're starting to whack them and stack them a little bit. Oh yeah, guaranteed fish. There's bite. Oh, short strike. There he is. That one actually got it. That's a decent one. Man, I need to loosen my drag now. The drag on this reel is garbage. I do not like it. There you go. Another little respectable bluegill, nothing giant, but nice little fight on ultralight. I'm just not a big fan of this reel. This is the 13 Fishing Kalen C 1000. You know, online it looked like it had some pretty good reviews, and you know, it's obviously a little bit more of a budget reel, so you can't have too high of expectations, but I don't know, I guess I've used other budget reels that I think are just a little bit better, specifically with the drag. It also just feels a little clunky, so it's not my favorite. I'm not trying to dog on them by any means, it's just not my favorite reel I've ever used, so I would personally probably avoid it, but that's just my perspective. I should probably try some of 13 Fishing's higher end stuff to see how that compares, but for like 60 bucks I think this cost me, I think there's other reels out there that are better. I'm gonna drop that horsefly in there because I think the horsefly is just working a little bit better, specifically because the jig is lighter. It's amazing how that solid tip can really help shoot these micro jigs under there. There he is. Oh yeah. Ooh, that's a nice one, I think. Either that or he's just fighting real good. It's a, yeah, nice solid big male bluegill. Wow, he's round. He's tall. Look at that fish right there. It's a beautiful fish right there. Always fun. Put up a good fight too. See you, buddy. One thing that I definitely wanted to talk about today is, you know, these are obviously solid tipped rods. So when I say that, as I've mentioned a couple times, they're extremely thin. Well, because I broke my Dobyns when using braid one time, that's left a bad taste in my mouth with braided fishing line and these solid tipped rods. But quite honestly, I do think that you can totally use braid if you want to. I think you just have to be a little bit more careful. I think I'm actually going to plan to rig up some more 6-pound braid and actually run it on my Dobyns, because I just really like the feel of braid paired with these rods. It just gives you absolutely zero stretch, and it's so much fun for jig fishing. So I'm definitely going to be rigging up some Spro braid on that rod over there. I'll probably swap out the reel to something I like a little bit more. But either way, like I said, I think you can still fish braid if you want to. You just have to be a little bit more cognizant of the fact that, you know, if that braid wraps your rod tip, you know, you've got a very, very thin rod tip. So you got to be careful. So if you haven't watched the video, I broke my first Dobyns because a bass ate and my fire line had wrapped around my rod tip. Now, after using several other braids, I can tell you that Fireline is not my personal favorite. I really like Daiwa J braid, and I like Spro. There he is. Oh yeah, another nice one. Man, I just let that sit down there for a second. God, they're fighting really hard. They're not that big, but they're fighting really hard today. Something about that cold water's got him angry. It's just a little guy, but he fought really good. See you, bud. There you go. Another cast, another gill. We're starting to catch a few. I wish we would have figured out some bass and crappie, but life goes on. I'll take what I can get today. See you, bud. I think I better shoot this thing under the dock. There's a bite. Just a little guy. He's not too bad. A lot of fish about this size, 6 to 7 inches. Respectable, but not giant by any means. Whoop. Heck of a release. As I've shown you in several videos now, shooting is basically grabbing your hook. Don't grab the actual point of your hook. Grab below the point of hook and you will not get poked. Then you just get your rod all loaded up, just like a bow and arrow, release. And I just shot it under there about 20 feet and I got a bite already. He doesn't have it though. There, he's got it. Oh, that was a little tiny fish. Missed him. Try that again. You don't have to have a heavy jig to make it go far. It's all about the resistance, and because these rods are so dang fast, it creates a heck of a bow. And that's why they're so much fun to dock shoot with. And there you go. Got the reward there. I'm telling you, even though these fish don't necessarily need the shade right now, it's more a matter of, you know, feeling safe under there. Good ambush point for them to, you know, eat small insects and bait fish and whatnot, but they're also kind of hiding from the bass and the big pike. So it's a good spot to catch them even if they don't necessarily need the shade. There's another one. There you go. And that is how the Kage bends. I feel like you've seen it enough by now, but just wanted to reiterate. Very much a fast model rod. See you, buddy. Gotcha. He was short striking that thing so much, and then he finally committed to it. And, you know, tell you what, it's actually a pretty solid one. There you go. Lots of fish about this quality in here. I'll take those any day of the week. See ya, bud. Well, I tell you what, I just re-rigged both rods, and I'm actually gonna fish for maybe 20 or 30 more minutes, but I figured I'd go ahead and start closing things out. All in all, both rods are extremely sensitive. They're extremely lightweight. They're extremely comfortable to fish with. They're both fast. They're both wonderful. They're very, very, very similar. That being said, for $170, I think it's fair to be a little bit nitpicky, and there's some slight differences between the two. If you wanna watch more of each of these rods, I've actually got an individual video on both, which I will link each of those in the description below, so go check those out if you're interested. That being said, for me personally, I like the Dobyns just a little bit more. And it all comes down to the fact that the rod butt is just a little bit thicker and that cork goes just a little bit further down the handle. So it's a little bit more comfortable for me. The other thing is the blank is just slightly softer. I mean, very minuscule, but slightly softer. And I think that that is just a little bit more forgiving for certain types of fishing, you know, crappie, trout. It's just gonna give me a little bit more flexibility. So for me, I like the Dobyns just a little bit more, but again, the Kage is freaking nice too. So neither one of them you can go wrong with. They're both wonderful, but slight differences. And again, be nitpicky. If you're gonna spend that kind of money, be nitpicky. It's totally okay. Either way, let's get back to fishing, see if we can't catch a couple more fish, and then I'm gonna go home. We'll catch you next time.